Molweni Mzansi Africa, the country has been gripped by rolling student protests which have highlighted the crisis of our higher education in the country. Student debt is spiraling out of control and threatening to cripple universities. And the protests around financial exclusions are understandably intensifying as government fiddles. This week, we take a look at how to find lasting solutions to the student funding crisis, and we unpack why a national shutdown is not the answer. But first, we take a look at the weekend headlines.
New students seeking funding for their higher education are in for a rough time. Higher Education Minister Nqaba says NSFAS has no available budget to commit to funding new students.
The shooting and killing of a 35-year-old man during yesterday's Wits protest has sparked outrage and deep concern. Police are alleged to have shot the victim with rubber bullets meant for protesting students.
I can't explain it. Somebody just, for me, went crazy.
According to the Forensic Science Laboratory, the current DNA backlog stood at more than 170,000 cases.
The current language policy that was adopted in 2016 explicitly downgraded Afrikaans at Stellenbosch University. Students being threatened with fines and disciplinary action if they speak Afrikaans in their residences and even in the private rooms in their hostels.
South Africans should brace themselves for more load shedding over the next 5 years.
Eskom's forecast for power cuts show that for the months ahead, South Africans will find themselves in the dark.
His Majesty, the King of the Zulu Nation, King Goodwill Zwelithini, has died.
It has been a very difficult day for the royal household and, of course, for the Zulu Nation as a whole.
This week in the headlines, Parliament votes in favour of a DA motion to investigate the Public Protector's fitness to hold office. South Africa's vaccine rollout is falling apart at the seams, and the DA takes the DNA backlog saga to the Human Rights Commission. But first, Bhanga is infamously known for his quote, "shoot to kill." Well, last week, the police did just that. An innocent young man was killed by a police officer during a protest at Wits. Mthokozi Sintumba was simply visiting a clinic when he was shot and killed. And Bhanga has just dismissed this whole incident by saying clearly a police officer just went crazy. This trigger-happy Kamisa Akyale minister needs to go. President Ramaphosa must do the right thing without further delay. Speaking of the irresponsible cowboy-in-chief, it seems there's no end to the problems at SAPS. The backlog in DNA testing is growing every day, and the online system for keeping track of all police evidence has been offline since June last year. Now, an estimated 8 million pieces of evidence are unaccounted for. This is more than simply an administrative matter. This is now a human rights issue. The situation is so dire that last week the DA wrote to the Speaker of the National Assembly to request a debate of national importance, and we have filed an official complaint at the Human Rights Commission. The failure of the SAPS to process DNA samples within a reasonable period of time is denying access to justice to hundreds of thousands of South Africans. In the meantime, violent rapists and murderers are released back into the streets to rape and murder with impunity. Last week, DA leader John Steenhuisen went to the University of Stellenbosch responding to complaints about students who've been prevented from speaking their mother tongue language on campus. It emerged that students speaking Afrikaans have been forbidden from doing so, even in their own res rooms. Some residents even took it as far as fining students for speaking Afrikaans. This is not just about Afrikaans. This is about protecting the right to express yourself in your mother tongue language, no matter what the language is. Inclusion cannot be achieved by the exclusion of any student due to the language they speak or by making them feel ashamed of their mother tongue. Ours is a diverse country that is rich in different languages and cultures. The DA will seek to protect the use of all our uniquely South African languages. Our constitution guarantees all a right to language and culture. Die Universiteit van Stellenbosch moet hulle kop in skamte hang. This week, the Human Rights Commission blatantly refused to investigate the illegal eviction order granted against Western Cape farmer Mr. Ivan Klute, whom we spoke to last week on the show. This is the very commission that has been campaigning against farm evictions and forced removals in the past. Yet, they inexplicably refused to investigate this particular case. Is there a political agenda at play? We implore them to grow a backbone and fulfill their mandate to protecting human rights in this country, no matter who is violating them. Yesterday, history was made in Parliament. The DA managed to get over 200 votes for our motion to have the fitness of the public protector, Advocate Mngadi, investigated by a parliamentary inquiry. Now, yesterday's vote is a victory for our constitutional democracy. It demonstrated that members of Parliament can work together in the best interests of South Africans. The DA now calls on President Ramaphosa to suspend Mngadi pending the ad hoc committee inquiry into her fitness to hold office. Chapter 9 institutions like the Public Protector need to be beyond reproach and work only to serve the people of South Africa. And finally, hello darkness, our old friend. Yes, once more our lights have been switched off, plunging South Africa into what is our new normal, ANC-mandated rolling blackouts. We were told that this latest round of powerlessness was caused by breakdowns at more than 5 power stations. But we all know what the real causes are: the immense mismanagement and corruption of the ANC government that has hollowed out this power utility. In closing, we want to bid farewell to Isilo Samabandla, King Goodwill Zwelithini kaBheki Zulu. We extend our heartfelt condolences to the Zulu royal family and to the Zulu nation. In the spotlight this week, student protests continue to spread in what has been billed as national shutdown of higher education institutions. Universities are between a rock and a hard place. Students are rightfully angry and feel let down. But where is government in all of this? What is the lasting solution to our higher education crisis? Let's take a look at the story in the spotlight.
Police have fired rubber bullets to disperse protesting students outside the Wits Medical Campus. This comes after students blockaded Empire Road with rocks and burning tires.
Student protests continue to spread across the country.
At least 24 students have been arrested during protests at the University of the Free State. Public order police were deployed after students refused to disperse.
They're demonstrating against the lack of NSFAS funding for some students, leaving them unable to register and obtain accommodation.
What started off as a protest by Wits University students ended in the death of one civilian caught in the crossfire, several students injured, and top Wits SRC members suspended.
You must witness this. This is them coming to us. This is how the approach has been from the beginning.
SAUS is calling for a national shutdown of all of South Africa's 26 universities.
It's unacceptable that we have to bear the brunt of mismanagement. It's highly unacceptable, and we stand here in absolute anger.
This is something I think that really has to focus the attention of government in bringing together all the parties to find a solution.
Over the past number of weeks, the cracks in the national government's free education plan have been plain to see. The total collapse of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which fails repeatedly to provide the financial safety net for those who need it most, has now come to a head. Our higher education system has been marred by mounting student debt, empty government promises, and political and administrative failures. And now the shutdown of institutions is threatening the entire higher education system. On the one side, we have very highly frustrated, and rightly so, students. On the other side, you have got higher education institutions who simply cannot operate with ongoing revenue shortfalls. And in the middle, you've got the actual architects of this crisis, the national government. Their superficial and populist solutions to the higher education crisis will only lead to continued disruptions across the country. A burden students, universities, colleges should not have to carry because of poor policy decisions by the ANC government. But joining me today to discuss where to from now, we've got Chantel King, who's the Shadow Minister of Higher Education and Training. Hello, Chantel.
Hello.
And we've got Luyolo Mphithi, who's not a stranger to the show, who's the Dear Youth Leader. Hello, sir.
What's up?
And we've got a DASO head, who is Sakhile Mngadi, who's joining us all the way from KZN. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, I want us to jump straight into it. A lot of people, Chantel, want to know, how did we end up here? What is the actual issue with higher education? What is the crisis? What is the nub of the problem that we have right now?
The crisis at the moment is that we have 799,000 students who actually applied for NEFSA, which is an overplay of 185,000 rand. What also comes to light, if you must keep in mind, 67% of those are SASSA recipients, which means there really isn't money for them to study. The downplay here is that NEFSA is delaying them from accessing higher education institutions by not communicating effectively when funds will be disbursed to universities for them to start their classes. It had also emerged that there is, at universities alone, a 5.7 billion shortfall. If you include TVET colleges, it would rise up to 6.8 billion shortfall. So that already you can see that some students will be funded, some will not be funded. And the delay by the National Student Financial Aid Scheme and the delay by the Department of Higher Education is a clear-cut case that we have broken promises since 2016, where the fees was at that time 9 billion, but now it has escalated to 34 billion rand in student funding. So it is clear that the ANC's policy of fee-free higher education needs to be reworked, and the decision taken by then Zuma should be looked at again, given that the minister, Blade Nzimande, was also the minister then. So hence we say it is an escalation, it is a frustration for students which must now bear the brunt of their failures and their mismanagement.
So ultimately, NSFAS has now broken in terms of what the administrative function is. I mean, there are kids who can't go to school because they haven't been given money to register.
That's clear. NEFSA hasn't even given any student an indication, keeping in mind the first-year students last year already had a difficult year. This year is now faced to say, hold on, you must wait a bit. We're not sure if we will be able to fund you, and we're not sure where we are going to get the funding from.
Sure.
This morning we had a meeting with the minister at our portfolio meeting, and he clearly stated that there isn't money and they will have to take round about 2 to 3 billion rand from universities to fund students. I mean, that is now robbing Peter to pay Paul situation, which the ANC government have actually allowed this to happen and not look at the funding crisis holistically already in last year.
Sakhile, I want to bring you in here. I mean, you know what the issue around the NSFAS failing to pay and what that means for students on the ground. What is the issue and how are students dealing with this?
So it's a literal war zone. You know, you get there in the morning and you find students who are sleeping on the side of the road because they came to an institution to register, but the maladministration from the side of financial aid through NSFAS means that they don't have answers. They don't know, when they're going to be able to register, when they're going to be able to move into res, when they're going to be able to eat. This is the situation on the ground, and it seems as if there is a season for this because every year, without fail, from 2016, we see the same kind of thing happening without any kind of resolve and without any kind of accountability. And that's a shame.
Yeah. I mean, so we went and spoke to some students this week who told us about their experiences on campuses. Let's take a look at this.
I think people are upset because people aren't funded by NSFAS. It's not giving them funds that they need to carry on with school.
I'm here to study, but how do I study if I can't pay for the fees?
Some of our families can't support us, like financially. So most of the time they depend on NSFAS.
Most people we all know come from poor backgrounds. So you cannot expect students to carry on with school without the funds that they need.
There can only be a backlog for a certain extent, man. It can't happen for over 3 months.
Yes, we understand due to COVID-19, there's issues. But now, how do students study? Because some can't study at home due to various reasons, which are obviously connectivity. Some people don't have good network at home. It's the noise at home.
Some of the students are not staying like on campus. They're staying at home. They are facing challenges to connect online. Those are the things that make some of the students to fail.
They cannot be planning now when it's like almost in the middle of the year. We've been losing so much time from last year. Now, if they're going to make us lose more time because they don't have a plan on what is to happen with funding and everything, it's going to be a problem for us students.
Everyone feels stuck. I feel stuck for one. I feel like, what's the point of going to school?
Luyolo, sure, that is heavy. You know, we've been here before, and just listening to that, I mean, you know, these are not just statistics. These are people who, as Sakhile said, they've gone to institutions to try and get an opportunity. Is there an argument to be made that we need to diversify opportunities for young people? There seems to be an overemphasis on just simply university education. And what do we have to say to that?
Thank you, Siviwe. I think first of all, as the DA Youth, we want to express our condolences to the family of Umtogozi Sintumba and the unfortunate incident that unfolded in Braamfontein this past week. But I think the most important thing that we need to have a discussion about is the fact that we have a government that has failed to prepare young people for the next 10, 20 years of what this economy is going to look like. And in doing that has actually sidelined TVET colleges, which don't actually even feature in the conversation around higher education and support in terms of funding to support young people. And so what we see, particularly in TVET colleges that are literally falling apart, the buildings are falling apart. Young people in those particular institutions don't even have a voice. Their stories are not even carried in television, in news segments. And so we have a conversation here that is not complete, a conversation that has left out the majority of young people who find themselves in TVET colleges, particularly learning vocational studies, who are not part of this conversation. And so government has failed in the first breath to make a place for young people in TVET colleges. And the centering of universities has created an inequality in this conversation. And that's what we are not talking about and what needs to be brought into the conversation.
Absolutely. And I mean, do you think that, I mean, Chantel was talking about the fact that, like, if you look at the shortfall, if you include TVET colleges, the amount is that much more. I mean, do you think that just like nationally, we are also not thinking about creative ways in which government can fund opportunities for people?
Definitely. We have an ANC government that has made promises to the student population all the way back to Jacob Zuma, who left office telling young people that he's provided free education. Where is that free education? It's nowhere to be found. And it speaks to the deceit and lies that were carried under Jacob Zuma that continue to evade and play a part in what students are facing right now. We need to actually be thinking about how we diversify skills amongst young people, how we not only look at universities, but look at TVET colleges to ensure that young people are not only going to university. I mean, there's only 26 universities, Siviwe. Not all of us can go to university. So how do we capacitate young people who don't find a space at university at TVET colleges, and also make sure infrastructure and support and funding is there for those students as well?
And equipping young people so that they can be responsive to the economy. Because it's one thing for all of us to desperately want to get into a university. But if we're not creating a skill set, people who are skilled enough to be responsive to the economy, then we're creating a mismatch of skills and people can't get work. And so, Sakhile, I mean, as Luyolo's saying a conversation, the national conversation is missing a whole chunk. Now, people are angry, and justifiably so. But the DA Students Organization has come out and said they're not supporting of a national shutdown. In fact, a lot of people have accused DASO of being absent from the marches. Why?
So those people are absolutely not being accurate. DASO has always believed about taking the fight to where it matters. And so not supporting the shutdown, which rightfully so, how can we, is a move that we say is effective because we want to hold the people who are responsible for this mess accountable. So we want to shut down Blade Nzimande. That's why we've called for his resignation. We want to shut down the Department of Higher Education to hold the individuals in there accountable, but also to fix the mess and the maladministration that's happening at NSFAS that's caused, 750,000 students to basically wander around in limbo without, foresight of where their problems are going to be solved, how they're going to register. So what we've seen in the past, and this is why we've taken this stance, is that shutdowns essentially don't work, because what they end up doing is that they put students in the forefront and the firing line. And we've seen how heavy-handed police are with students. So as an organization, we can't support that because, our parents send us to university to go get an education and come back with a degree. They don't send us to come back in coffins, which is what consistently has happened since 2016. So as DASO is saying, the fight shouldn't be outside the entrances of universities. It should be at the Department of Higher Education. It should be at the NSFAS offices, which are here in Cape Town. That's where we're going to get the real change that is going to ultimately affect the situation positively and find a solution to this matter, because it's been going on since 2016 without any kind of positive outcome.
Chantel, is Blade being spared here from taking the fall for this?
Definitely. I feel that he himself wants to come out as if he's the savior. You saw that he actually said that Zuma's decision he took then was irrational. Really, he was actually the minister at the time.
He's clearly not the sharpest blade himself.
Yeah, his decision was also irrational. But I also hear what Luyolo say about TVET colleges. And I agree with him completely to say the best way for us to ensure that students actually enter TVET colleges, which is less costly, is basically to upgrade the curricula of the TVET colleges. We've seen that the list of critical skills have just come out, and it is a clear mismatch between what is on offer and what we actually offer. In fact, it actually boils down to a 52% mismatch in the job market to the skill market, which is a clear indictment that the ANC has not actually upgrade our youth for employment, but they've actually graded our youth to stand in the unemployment lines, a waste, a dream lost of any parent.
Luyolo, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the quarter labor survey and the statistics. And the fact that now we are 52% mismatched from the needs of the economy, it means that this number that we were talking about the other week is going to grow.
And that's the thing, because we look at these statistics and we don't realize that there are real people that are facing these issues. And just to say and agree with Sakhile is that we have political parties that have come and tried to manipulate the very valid issues of young people and have brought shutdowns now to campuses, not for the students, not because students can't study, but because they have their own political objectives. Look at the EFF trying to hijack the concerns of students, speaking about things that students don't really care about. This fight needs to be about what the case is. The case is we have people who are in the Department of Higher Education who have been corrupt, who have mismanaged funds, and who are failing students. And that's where the conversation needs to stay.
Speaking, of hijackers, Sakhile, we saw in the middle of Johannesburg where the protesters marched to Lutuli House, and Ace got up and he joined them. How? And he joined them in the march to Constitutional Hill. And what is he doing?
This is what we say when we say it's been hijacked, because a lot of these student leaders see it as an opportunity to, grandstand on issues, legitimate concerns of suffering students, so that they can catapult their political careers in those parties. And we think that that's absolutely disgraceful. And that's why we've taken the stance that we've taken as DASO. We've always said no student should be left behind. And so this fight needs to go where it absolutely has to, and that's the Department of Higher Education and NSFAS.
To the blunt blade. Now, Chantel, tell me, there's a difference. We've come up with a plan to solve the higher education crisis. What is the key difference between what we're proposing and what's on the table?
Our key difference will basically be a 3-tier system, which we've agreed upon. The current system of NEFSA only goes up to 350,000 rand, but we've actually taken the step further to say, no, we will actually go as far as 650,000 rand. To say the 350,000 rand cohort, they will actually get a loan funding, because we are moving into a loan scholarship funding, because we can see that free higher education is not going to be sustainable. It's going to exclude in the long run more students. It's going to actually increase the load of NEFSA, and we've worked out it might end up in 2 to 3 years' time to 65 billion rand. And our country cannot support that. Hence, we say we give you a full, complete loan, 350. From 350 to 500,000 rand, we will then cover 66% of the cost. And then those beyond that, we will then look at a 33% cost if it's up to 650,000 rand. It would then include more students, especially the missing middle, because it would then be open for everyone to apply. But we've actually gone a step further now to say, if you apply, but I'm a single mom, I've got one child, I am falling into the 350 category, you a mom, you are also in the 350 category, but you've got 3 or 4 children. We then work it out per capita, per household, so that everyone can then be inclusive to get more funding. You will only pay back the money once you start to work. So it will only be on when you receive a specific amount of income, you only pay that money back. But we've gone a step further to say, we will also be looking, if you have a child, 2 or 3 children, we will take that into consideration and then lower it. The reason why we want to go back to a loan system is clearly so that the fund is sustainable, so that we can have the next generation and the next generation after that to also have access to funding, because clearly we can see that the ANC's condition of free higher education is nothing but a pipe dream, and which is going to see most of the people in South Africa sitting at home with a skill that is not aligned. Hence, our loan system will also focus on looking at the critical skill subjects first and support them, so that our country can also be economically viable and competitive to the rest of the world, and see the unemployment rate decreasing because of that.
So, I mean, what would you say to somebody who says, oh, well, the DA wants to just simply, plunge young people into debt, and that's why you are not, we want just free higher education for everybody? Because, I mean, that's what you're contending with people who are sloganeering and saying free higher education for everybody, forever, for life. Now, what would you say to that? Because somebody might say, well, why does the DA want to give me a loan when I just want it for free?
Well, our loan system is totally different. You will be getting a loan, which means more students, our missing middle, would have access to that funding, but also on condition that you pass. We've seen a system where we have more dropouts. In the first year, about 47% of first years dropout. We've seen that some people take 6 to 7 years to complete the degree, which basically defeats the purpose of the funding, which means it will be rolling funding for one person. So we'll give you a loan, precise on quality instead of quantity. We give quality education out there. We've get quality graduates that can ultimately find employment. But with this system, you will get a loan. We found out that about 30 to 40% of the ones who receive NEFSA, current NEFSA, is sitting at home. So that was an investment that we made, but the investment is not yielding any return for the next generation. You understand? To create employment.
And I think what's also important, Chantel, is that you talk about sustainability. Because, I mean, it's one thing to say we want it to be free forever, for life, for everybody. But then if in 3 years' time, the fund in itself is unsustainable, then nobody gets, and nobody gets any form of free education. But also just on this quickly, Luyolo, I mean, it seems to me that, if we can fix the problems, the endemic issues at the higher education department, then, and we can make sure that skills are aligned, then there's obviously now an obligation on government to say, well, these people whom we've trained need to go into work. So it speaks to this issue around, again, growing an economy that can create jobs.
Just on that, Siviwe, is that we also need young people to understand that we are already in debt. We are already, as all South Africans in this country, paying so many things that we shouldn't be paying for, because we are dealing with a corrupt government that has mismanaged funds. And now, as ordinary South Africans, we must pay for SAA. We must pay for a number of different things. So we're already in debt. And as young people, we are at the risk now of growing old. You know, turning 40 and still paying a tooth and an arm and a leg just to survive in this economy. So what we need to understand, and what is being put on the table by the DA, is an understanding of where our fiscus is and what it needs to survive, and what we can do to help students to actually get the education that they require to make something of themselves, and not to have what we saw, the young man saying he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know where to go. That's not what we want young people to go into universities thinking. We want them to know that in a DA government, they can have that vision and that dream to live a life where they can provide for themselves. That's what we want.
And I mean, look, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, that young man that you're talking about, I mean, he's saying that he feels stuck, Sakhile. And the thing is, I mean, a lot of people also seem to be of the view that somehow young people just want handouts and they just want, you know, a free education. They just want to arrive at places. But ultimately, people have been misled. And we don't get the basics right. Like what you were saying on campuses where people don't know where to go apply, don't know where their food is going to come from. I mean, this is not just about people wanting to, you know, benefit from freebies. These are people who have been let go from their homes and now they arrive at universities and there's nothing.
Yeah. So as DASO, we have a program that we've run consistently for a number of years now called Sakhile, which is basically an orientation program. So we find that a student will come to a university and they basically know nothing. They don't know where to go for financial aid. They don't know where to go to apply and register for residences. They don't know how to get their food card so they're able to eat. And this program allows us to give them that orientation. We have our activists on the ground who assist these students. And, you know, something that's really troubling is that during this time, there's also a period of where people take advantage, especially of young girls who are in the city for the first time. They don't know what's happening because of all the chaos. They now found out maybe that they can't even qualify for NSFAS funding, so now they're stuck, and it gives these individuals an opportunity to take advantage of them. So we come in as DASO, as people who are able to guide students and say, you know what, well, okay, fine, right now NSFAS doesn't really work, so you can't even call them, but at least we can, you know, find a temporary solution for you so that you aren't at the face of danger.
Chantel, I mean, where to from now on your side? I mean, now, I mean, this crisis is not going away. And what are we going to do with these solutions that we have that we want to propose? So where to from now?
Look, ours is a long-term solution, which we will gradually integrate into the system. But what should actually happen now at the moment, we cannot allow many of the students to be financially excluded. So we actually appeal to most of the higher education institutions is to allow most of these students back into the system. Give them a time to sign an acknowledgement of debt certificate. We've actually gone as far to say they must actually pledge that by students, that by June this year, 50% of their debts would be covered. They must work out the plan. What we then do with the balance of their 50%, we incorporate it into this year's payment plan, the 2021 payment plan, for them then to pay it off. We also, we know universities are also catching the brunt of everything, but at the end of the day, we must ensure that we cannot allow an academic year to go beyond April. It would not then help. It would then mean into 2022, we'd still carry 2021, which we don't want a rehash of. So we also are appealing that most of the universities don't actually ask that upfront payment. Because I think that is where the situation and the frustration comes out, especially for the missing middle. A mother that might today not have 4,500 rand, but within 3 months I can pay it off. So we're trying to bring as many students in, but the plan now at the moment is for us, like they said, take it back to the Department of Higher Education, make Blade Nzimande face what he's created and the ANC. We've also put in a motion yesterday to ask that we have a discussion around the fees and the enrollment at of universities and other higher institutions, so that we take it to Parliament so that they can realize, as you just said, students are not fighting because they want to. They are fighting because this is the only hope for some parents, some families, for them to have a first door into tertiary and for the next generation in that same family to gain access. Now, for us, for a child or from Tata, to come to UWC, okay, I might just not say you because UWC was the one who actually is the better of all the others, let's say to Wits. And this child has got nowhere to go, no food to eat, and yet the minister today would say, unfortunately, there is no money. Unfortunately, the minister's failed. They must find some way to get a little bit of money to sort the situation out now. I know it's a short-term solution, but before April or before May, give us a plan for next year so that we know, and take the DA's plan, because we are going to offer it to them. Take our plan and start rolling with it, and not vote go against party line, but also think of the students that are there. They need your help more than what the ANC, SACP, COSATU Alliance need at the moment.
Oh, it's so true about sometimes, you know, financial aid is the only thing that stands between you and getting that opportunity. I'm certainly a product of that. Had I not had an opportunity to get financial aid, I wouldn't have gotten a university education. It is that simple. And so, you know, ultimately we want other young people to gain that opportunity, whether it's university or a TVET or a school of skills. You guys want him to go?
We absolutely do. We think now is not the time to politicize this. I call upon other student leaders to support what we're trying to say. Our two-point plan of, you know, the short-term solution to allow the missing middle to have access and to register, and our long-term plan to basically sort out this whole mess. I think that it's gone on for too long, and we've lost lives along the way, and that's shameful. And I think that the buck stops with the leader, so Blade must go, guys.
And you can't keep blaming our fresh prince of Nkandla. Luyolo, young people are in a precarious position in this country, and between unemployment, between the state of our economy, between our skewed priorities as well. Like you said, when we can pay 10 billion to SAA as a vanity project for the ANC, but we can't fund students. We can continuously bail out, you know, hollowed out institutions, but we can't invest in people's future. So all of these things, all the things that are stacked up against, you know, young people in South Africa, more than half of which are unemployed today. What do we say to them? Where to from now?
Yeah, Siviwe, look, one thing that we understand, from our young people is that they carry their dreams in suitcases to a South Africa that was promised, a South Africa that now cannot deliver for them. And what we want young people to know out there, students who are watching this show right now, is that we are not going to sell you dreams. We are not going to sell you something that is not possible, but we're going to sell you something real, something practical, rational, something that understands that our economy is currently in a recession, something that understands that our fiscus cannot handle the concept or the idea of free education, but with an understanding that young people need to go and receive an education, with an understanding that young people have the right to be at universities, to educate themselves and skill themselves to be able to be part of this economy. So what we are proposing is quite simple. Young people must not be left out. We need to reform NSFAS. We need to get young people, again, back at universities, but also not leaving out TVET colleges, because those are the colleges that are carrying majority of young South Africans that don't have the luxury to appear on ENCA, on SABC, on Newsnights. So we need to put those solutions on the table. And what we can say, Siviwe, to young people in closing is just to say that whatever they have in their hearts, they must know that as the Democratic Alliance, we are fighting for them in Parliament. We are fighting for them with practical, rational solutions, and we are not going to be those students who are with you in those marches, wearing ANC regalias, leading you in protest, when in fact it's their party that is responsible for you not being in class, that is responsible for you not having an education or a qualification. They are the ones leading you astray, hijacking this very important and valid issue of education for young people. And so, Siviwe, we remind them that the DA is fighting to ensure that we get back to class and get the skills that we require as young people to make this economy what we want it to be.
Thank you. And young people have an opportunity. I mean, it's an election year. It's 2021, and it's my hope that young people will start to choose a government that will not lead them into complete disarray, where people don't have anything to eat and they get to universities or TVET colleges or wherever they're going, and they're told that we don't have money, but your government can spend money on frivolous nonsense. And so we hope that people can make different political choices as we head towards 2021. Well, we are in 2021 as we head towards the election. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Sakhile and Chantel and Luyolo. Please keep fighting the good fight. Absolutely. And we will be back after this. And cities across the country. Since returning to government after the ANC Gauteng's illegal power grab, the DA-led Tshwane has fixed 6,779 potholes in just 4 months. In the 2020 lockdown period, the DA governed Cape Town's business hub received 2,850 service requests and has resolved 98% of them within 2 working days. And the DA-governed Breda Valley launched its 2021 Mayoral Bursary Project to assist young students with financial assistance. However, onto this week's DA at Work feature, we are joined by Nqaba Bhanga, the new mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay. Mayor Kunjan, it's so good to see you.
Hi, Siviwe, man, it's good to see you too.
Kuphizi Gqeberha.
This is Port Elizabeth, it's not Gqeberha.
Talk to me about this name change, Mayor. You have been super vocal about the fact that you are going to be opposing the name change of Port Elizabeth to Gqeberha. And explain to us why and what steps have you taken?
Firstly, I must explain that I've heard a lot of people using the name Gqeberha for Port Elizabeth, and I must inform them that there's still a process. Okay. Until the process is completed, then officially cities and names might be changed. You can't change names once there's still a process. Therefore, if you do that, therefore you're killing the whole process of consultation. The same issue that I am raising, that part of what has been happening in this process is that there has not been a clear communication line. You would know that the Democratic Alliance have been opposed to this, and including the ANC and all other political parties saying the process has not been followed. I'm not the only mayor who have started opposing this. Danny Jordan, the mayor, also opposed the process in terms of consultation, the mayor of the ANC, which confirms that we are not being petty, that the process has not been followed properly. The second thing about this, Siviwe, is that this name, Gqeberha, we are told that it originates from Khoi language. Then it's not a Xhosa name. It has no meaning in Xhosa. And if it is a Khoi name, if you say you're restoring a language, you must then write that in that language. In this case, the Khoi language, for instance, it's written in our coat of arms. Why it's there? Because they were restoring the Khoi language. They don't write it in English or in Afrikaans. They wrote it in Khoi because they're restoring language. In this case, we believe that the government, they failed to restore this language, even if they want to change. Something wrong has happened. In doing so, they've distorted another language, which is a Xhosa language, using a Khoi name and in Xhosa, which has no meaning. Names must have meaning. Siviwe, for instance, is got a meaning that we've been listening to. In order for people to identify with these names, it's when they have meaning. The people in Nelson Mandela are saying, we understand that we are involved in a nation-building project of restoring the history of our people and also affirming some of the parts of our history that were neglected. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we are saying, part of restoring and restoration is to affirm our national diversity. That's why diverse nation, which means the democratic project, affirms that we must work together, black and white, as we move forward, hold hands, and make sure that the things we do going forward, they bring us together. But this name have divided us. It's not only white people who are against it, colored people, black, white, colored, and Indian. This is the only topic in this city and thing in South Africa that we have had people around this name united, not on the basis of their color of their skin, but on the basis that people are making a clarion call that if we change this name, we need a name that is going to bring us together as a diversity in order for us to be able to emulate the values of Dr. Nelson Mandela, who said that we unify our people. The last thing is that I want us to understand is that the democratic project of unity was that we should acknowledge the fact that our history, which means including the history of colonization, is part of our heritage. The history for 1910 formation of the Union is our heritage. The segregation of our people is our heritage. The struggle for liberation is our heritage. The bicameral parliament is our heritage. The formation of a democratic breakthrough is our. Therefore, our history must be kept together in order for us to learn from the mistakes of our past, in order for our children and generations to come, that they don't report those and celebrate what we are. We must celebrate the good, the bad, and the ugly about South Africa. I will give you an example about a country, which is the DRC. In the DRC, they were colonized by Belgium. And then after that, Patrice Lumumba, a Mandela of the DRC, took over. He was overthrown by Mobutu Sese Seko. Mobutu Sese Seko, if I can tell you what he did, he changed streets, he changed schools, he changed roads. He even changed the name of the country after himself. That's not what we need. He called it Zaire, his name. What we need is that I must be able, as I walk in front of the city hall, there's a statue of Queen Victoria, and say to Sbahle, this is Queen Victoria. He arrived here in this particular year and were colonized. But opposite Queen Victoria here, it's a square named after Vuyisile Mngadi. I must be able to say this is Vuyisile Mngadi, our liberator. In order for children to learn from our past and also to our future, for them to understand the coexistence of our past and our future. Lastly, here we have a donkey where this city was named after. Donkey. Elizabeth Donkey. There is a beautiful architecture of what represents the arrival of Elizabeth Duncan and his husband. But at the same time, in this city, we have a many big building constructed by democratic breakthrough, beautiful infrastructure and architecture, made in a democratic, therefore the two, the old and the new, should coexist in order for our children what South Africa is all about.
No, I hear you, Mayor. I hear you, and I know you. I know you are super passionate about this, but I do also want to bring you very quickly to, not without a fight, but you are finally, working very hard to prioritize service delivery in the city, and you've started working super hard to be able to, fix what has been broken. Talk to us about some of the things that you found when you got into government again after 2016, when you inherited the city again. What were some of the things that were broken in the city?
I must say, Siviwe, you won't understand that in a democratic South Africa, people would refuse to elect public representatives as enshrined in the Constitution. I never thought that in a democratic country, people would say, we'll never allow that a democratic process written in the Constitution must be followed. That's the first thing we found. That dictatorship doesn't knock on the door. It comes in small packages, and we could see it here. We fixed that because we're Democrats. We believe that the South African Constitution is a supreme law of the Republic, and everybody must be elected to represent people. And that costed us 1.6 billion. That's since 2020. This people, after forcing the Democratic Alliance, that the democratic process must be followed. And we're able to make sure that we get this 1.6 billion rand back to deal with the service delivery problem facing our people. Those who were in power did not care whether we get that 1.6 billion rand or not. But the DA cared. We had to take them to court. We had to make sure we write to National Treasury. And the second part of it is that National Treasury gave instruction to say the irregular expenditure and the irregular decisions that were taken must be reversed. I will tell you, for the first time in South Africa, that we forced the council as a DA to take a decision that all those who have voted, 61 councillors voted for all these wrong decisions, for the first time will have to pay for that. The first statement they're going to do, it's a 2 million rand, where they reverse the suspension of people. That's very important, because there must be consequences even for politicians who are taking wrong decisions. What we did further, we made sure, because there was no leadership, but our people and our city was ashamed throughout the country of not complying with COVID-19. On the 4th of December, when we took over, we had 4,178 people infected with COVID-19. I went out, I put roadblocks, educated people. We worked with people in partnership. As I speak with you right now, we do not have more than 100 people infected with COVID-19. We work with hospitals, because in campaigns you need leadership. And we provided them leadership. We're fixing streets now, we're fixing roads, we're fixing electricity, because local government, it's about making sure that when you open your tap, there's water in your tap.
Absolutely.
When you want to light and is electricity. Therefore, that's what we're doing, delivering basic services to make sure that this is back again on food, and also we're delivering basic services to the people.
Now, sir, I mean, I know you're working extremely hard, and what would you say to the people of NMB who are saying, Mayor Bhanga, we want you and your team to continue with this good service? What do they need to do? We're heading towards an election now it's 2021. I keep making this mistake. It's 2021. We're heading towards an election at the end of the year. What do you have to say to the people of NMB so that they can keep getting the good services that your team and you are delivering?
The first thing, it should start with me as a mayor, not to take for granted the fact that the people have given a goodwill to give me a responsibility to run them with my team. That's the first thing. It's us as leadership that we should start understanding this big responsibility and heavy put into our shoulders. that it is just the goodwill of the people. The people can take it. The second thing we need to do is to communicate extensively on the ground with our people in volume in order for the people to understand our message. And if people understand our message, they're going to join us. What we expect from the people is to participate in governing the city with us. We want them as partners, and we want them to criticize us when we are wrong, but we want them to commend us when we're doing something. We need to hold people voting. They must register and vote and participate in the program of voting, because we have no choice in this country. It's either we give over South Africa to the extremists, the left, or we give it over to the extreme right. We need a government at the center, and the DA is that hope that can take South Africa forward. These municipalities run by the DA are small packages of models that we want to showcase to South Africa, that what will a government of the DA, the national government, look like? This is what we are doing. And the people can start by voting right leaders in local government to make sure that there are DA governments throughout provinces at the end that the DA is elected, because the DA, when it governs better. And our system, a party that can be able to take over from the African National Congress, only the DA, because we do have a case study of what good governance is. There is a clear blue water of what we are doing here in this municipality and what the ANC was doing. People can see it.
Yeah. Mayor, I just want to say, continue doing the good work. We are in awe of how much you've quickly hit the ground running. Siyazidla ngomsebenzi wenu enwenzayo apho eBhayi, and hopefully soon we can have you on the studio when you take a break and come and join us here in Cape Town. Keep up the good work, and thank you so much for joining us. And we will be right back. Stay tuned. Africa, please don't forget it's an election year. Please do check your voter registration status at check.da.org.za and make sure you are ready to play your part. The challenges facing South Africa are not insurmountable. They require strong, ethical leadership and citizens who will demand better from those they've elected into office. Remember that you possess the power to hire and fire the government that you want. Use that power wisely and deliberately. Until next week, keep it tight, Mzansi.